This podcast is made possible by Vena.
Hi, this is Gina Mastantuno, the CFO of ServiceNow, and you're listening to the CFO Thought Leader Podcast.
This is episode 875.
In 2021, we sold in $308 million, and we are now at 510. What it means is $510 million of revenue in 2022 based on our latest guidance. So 510 divided in 308 is 65%. So we are trying to educate the employees in how to look at these KPIs. And also we provide a lot of benchmark because we want to make sure that people understand that not only the absolute number, but also how it is related to other publicly traded company in our industry, in our space, and to make sure that they understand this difference and what is unique about us.
Hi, it's Jack. On today's show, we speak with Eliran Glazer, CFO of Monday. Eliran Glazer's finance career journey begins in the late 1990s at the Tel Aviv office of KPMG, where the 20-something Glazer had spent 3 years auditing a portfolio of fast-growing software companies. As the year 2000 approached, Glazer tells us he was suddenly being recruited by an Israeli-American CFO who was seeking to fill a controllership position. But the gray-haired CFO left little doubt the role he had in mind could potentially offer much more. Glazer tells us the CFO's pitch went something like this. Look, I'm pretty certain you know accounting well, but I can help you develop a business view. Hence was the beginning of a wonderful mentorship. Eliran Glazer explains why, and much more after this. Managing multiple spreadsheets, disconnected data, numbers you just can't trust. Your finance team can't be the strategic partner your organization needs right now, with obstacles like that getting in your way. Vena can change that. Vena brings people, processes, and systems together in a single collaborative analytical platform so you can drive connected business planning and better decision making. And it's the only native Excel complete planning platform built for Microsoft 365 with Power BI embedded. With Vena, your financial and operational data is always connected, and your teams are always armed with insights and time to focus on what matters most. So when the stakes are high and the margin for error low, plan with agility, plan with resilience, plan with Vena so you can be prepared for whatever comes next. Visit venasolutions.com/planningaces to learn more about how Vena will help you plan for anything. Hello, we're speaking with Eliran Glazer, CFO of Monday. Eliran, welcome.
Thank you, Jack. Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here and participate in your podcast.
Well, Eliran, we always ask our guests at the start to look back for us a little bit and try to identify some of those places in time where they acquired their finance leadership skills and experience. Can you look back for us and share some?
Sure. So I started my career more than 20 years ago in the Tel Aviv office of KPMG, early 1997. Spent there 3 years, mostly auditing software companies, global software companies. And then after 3 years at KPMG, I decided that I don't want to take the direction of being an audit partner or an auditor in companies. I want to be a controller. So through friends, I had friends in other places. One of them called me, said, look, we have a job in a company back then called BackWeb, publicly traded company in NASDAQ, an Israeli one. We are speaking about year 2000, just before the bubble burst. And they're looking for a controller, to join the company. And, I was interviewed there. And, early 2000, I left KPMG to start my career as a controller. And because BackWeb was a public company, basically it had offices all around the world, in the US, in the East Coast, in the West Coast, in Europe. So I started my career as an accountant and a controller. However, I was lucky to have a CFO who was an Israeli-American, who basically told me, he said, look, I'm pretty sure that you know your accounting well, but I would like you also to develop a business view. And I can tell you that it will help you during your career. And 20 plus years more after, I can tell you that his advice was great because, combining the accounting skills together with the business view and understanding the businesses that you are working with or working for is a great tool that I think will help many people. So as a young controller, I started understanding better the business, speaking with the product people, speaking with the marketing guys, speaking with the sales guys, and it gave me a lot of insight of how to look at things, not only from the financial view, but also from the business side.
Can I ask you about that CFO? I mean, how did he get his controller to enjoy that view? Did he start involving you in different discussions? Did he task you with a certain project?
Yeah, this is a great question. So I was my early 30s or even just before getting 30. He was in his late 50s and he was in a phase in life where he didn't feel like he has to be threatened by any one of his employees. So he said, look, I'm at the stage in life that I can share, information with you. I'm not going to marginalize you. So he actually took me to meetings. He allowed me to travel to the US to meet the team over there. He says, come join me for business meetings with either external stakeholders or internal. So the way he kind of shared his domain with me by way of almost mentoring me in a way helped me a lot to gain this knowledge and go this direction.
How big a company was? Is it TechWeb? Is that what you?
BackWeb, the company called BackWeb. At the time, it was, around, I believe, 500 employees, publicly traded, tens of millions of dollars. But I can tell you, and one more thing that I learned, during the bubble burst, after a year and a half, the company, was struggling like many other companies back at the time. The CFO, he took companies public before that. His name is Hanan Meron, just mentioning. So he lived in Tenafly, New Jersey, and he moved to another company, and he took me with him. So this was the second phase of my career, and he made me a director of finance. We built this relationship, which, by the way, goes with me until today. Many of the CFOs, sometimes people think about them as like bean counters, sitting in the offices, not really communicating with people. For me, I think you have to be a people person because I believe a CFO, in the evolution of a CFO, you're working with so many stakeholders, with so many people internally, externally. You have to know how to deal with people, and you have to be good at that. So for me, I joined him as director of finance in a company called Schema. It was back then in 2001. Schema was a company in the world of telecom. It was building sites for telecom companies such as Nortel, Alcatel, Ericsson, all these companies. I worked there for almost 4 years. Interesting, I was there 3 years as finance director, and then Hanan decided to move on, and basically they made me the CFO, the interim CFO, and later the CFO. So they kind of threw me into the water, and they said, look, you have to take this responsibility. So I joined the executive team. I started to interact with the board directly. And, I was also responsible for a lot of business things. And I think the education and the mentoring that Hanan gave me until then, like 5 years I worked with him, helped me a lot. I can tell you that I made a lot of mistakes. Or here's an advice. Don't be afraid when you're given the opportunity. Don't be afraid to take the opportunity. And even if you make mistakes, you learn as you move on. We're not, even today I make mistakes where I'm very experienced, but I was learning. I was listening to, podcasts. I read all kinds of articles. I read material. Back at the time, it was starting to be more kind of online internet articles and blogs. So I was doing a lot of things in order to develop myself as a CFO, definitely as a young CFO, but even improving my English, working with the people outside of Israel, in US, in England. You have to have better English, to have to understand, the jargon. And I was with Schema until 2005, 3 years as director of finance, 2 years as a CFO. And then I moved to a company called Triana. Triana was a company in the world of foreign exchange. It was a startup that was basically working between big organizations, big banks, JP Morgan, Morgan Stanley on one hand, and on the other hand, you have the hedge funds and asset managers. And we used to provide them with a platform to do trading notification for FX at the time. So in 2006, I was offered to do relocation to the US. And I remember calling my wife and telling her, look, Michal, Gil is the CEO. He offered me to move to the US with the family. What do you say? And at the time, 2006, I am 35 years old. I have 2 girls. And my wife told me, let's do it. So, we took the opportunity and we moved to the US. Another advice I would give people, don't be afraid to go to another country. It's an amazing opportunity, an amazing kind of exposure. So I lived in the US between 2006 until 2010. Now, Jack, to remind you, during that time, there was the meltdown of the banks. And I'm working for the financial industry. I'm working for a financial company during the meltdown of the banks, 2007, 2008, Bear Stearns, and then Lehman Brothers. But we were lucky because back in 2007, we were acquired by a London-based company called ICAP, a publicly traded that bought Triana, and they left us completely independent. And I can tell you that even during this crisis, I remember having difficult days in the US where you see, the sky falling, literally. But you also gain a lot of experience about what it means to be resilient, what it means to make decisions in times where, of uncertainty. If you just take like 15 years onward to our days, what happened in the last year? COVID to a certain extent, and even now in the last year, a lot of, uncertainty, inflation, geopolitical situation. So there are a lot of resemblance to some of the challenges we had to deal with.
You gave us a nice overview. I have to say, the CFO that you spoke of originally at BackWeb, and did he help recruit you out of KPMG?
Yeah.
Did he first bring you? He's a common thread through the first half of your career, I guess. He's played this important role. Am I overstating that, or?
No, you're not overstating that.
And just the idea that, okay, so he wants to broaden you. In fact, you accompanied him on different trips just so he could expose you to different discussions and operational issues, perhaps. But he is really this wonderful mentor that so many finance executives out there would hope to someday find or wish they had found. So thank you for sharing that. Now, let's find out about Monday. If you wouldn't mind, tell us about this company. What does it do? What are its offerings today?
So Monday is a work operating system. We call it WorkOS, where organization of any size can create tools and processes they need in order to manage every aspect of the work. So if you speak of today, what we disclosed already to the market, we have more than 150,000 customers. 70% of our customers are non-tech. We crossed 500 million in revenue in 2022. In our last guidance, we said we're going to do around $510 million. We have more than 1,500 employees. We are based in Israel with, the headquarters is in Israel, but we also have a very big offices in New York, in London, in Australia. I would say that out of the 1,500 employees, about 65% are in Israel, and the rest are, another 20% in the US, and the rest are in other offices, around the world. It's a great culture to work for Monday. Monday has a great culture, developing people, making sure that we invest in employees because innovation is in the heart and one of the growth engines of Monday. We of course have competitors across our various business verticals. Because we operate as a platform, we have many use cases that we can serve. So if you think about our industry, our space, there are different players there that can compete with us in different verticals, but it's still a greenfield opportunity for us. The work of collaboration software, whether you work remotely, if you take COVID, for example, or you're coming to work in the office, it allows you to collaborate with people in your team, in your division, but also with other groups within the organization. And this is something that, it's really useful in these days, because if you think about what happened during COVID and even before there, digitization, technology transformation for a lot of organizations. They bought a lot of softwares. They now need to implement them. So Monday allows them to consolidate a lot of the softwares, to work together and to collaborate between either internally employees and also integration with other organizations. So this is by and large Monday.
Could you give us perhaps an abbreviated history of its capital structure, the funding behind it, who's behind it?
Excellent. So Monday was founded by two very skilled entrepreneurs. They are now the co-CEOs of the company, Roy Iman and Eran Ziman. Both of them were kind of developers, but also with intensive and deep understanding of the product. So they launched the company back in 2012. First product was in 2014. Now, the interesting part about Monday is as a private company, Monday raised $234 million altogether. And when we went public, we raised another $736 million. And, altogether in the life of Monday, $970 million. But the beauty of it is that when we went public, we had $850 million in the bank with the public funding. So altogether in the life of Monday, we burned $120 million. And now we reported our results for Q3. We are about to report Q4 results. And we actually didn't burn any dollar since we went public. The company remained cash flow positive. And this is a very great achievement for a company, a software company at hyper growth, because we grew, in the third quarter, 80% almost. So you are growing at scale, but you're still not burning cash. So, the cash, the capital structure of Monday is very solid, more than $850 million in the bank. So for us, and we have no debt. So we are in a very good shape.
When was the IPO?
The IPO was in June 2021. And, remind me if you remember the cohort of 2020, 2021, many companies went public. It was like the high 5 days, both in Israel as well as in the US. There were also SPACs that went public. And I think, in the last year, there were a lot of challenges for some of the companies. And I believe that the ones that went public and has an exceptional business model are going to be outstanding also in the future years.
Was this your first company you took public, or were there others prior to it?
Yeah, so this is the first company. So maybe Jack, this is the time if you want to ask me about the strategic, what is the strategic moment of my life as a CFO?
Okay, so that's going to be the strategic. But I'm going to hold off then, because I want to ask you about your KPIs and how you understand this company's performing the way you want it to first, and then we'll get to that strategic moment. But first, let us know what are you looking at before your first cup of coffee in the morning? What is it that you're looking at every day? What are those numbers really? Renewals, recurring revenue, clearly.
Yeah. So this is a great question. As a SaaS company, you have KPIs that are kind of very important to manage the health of the business. So obviously, you're looking at annual recurring revenue, ARR, which includes also your renewal rate. You're looking at churn rate, and you're looking at a concept called net dollar retention rate, which means, I will give an example. If you are a SaaS company and you sell $100 in year one, if you have positive net dollar retention rate, which means the customer that bought from you in $100 in year one is probably going to buy more than 100 in year two, because there is an expansion mechanism. So let's say you bought 50 seats. The business model of Monday is per seat, per user, per month. So if you bought 100 seats for $1 in year one, and you paid $100, in the following year, your organization grew, and you're now buying 150 seats, and you paid $150. So your net dollar retention rate is 150%, because you were able to grow your customer by 50%. And as long as you continue to expand within your customer base by adding more seats, by adding more functionalities, by adding more features, by adding more divisions within the organization, upsell and cross-sell, you have a positive net dollar retention rate. So this is one of the most important KPIs that you look at SaaS companies. You look at your cash efficiency, which means you're looking at sales efficiency, how much it cost me to bring a new customer, cost of acquisition, and how much this customer is bringing me in terms of lifetime value. Meaning, if I invested in bringing Jack to be a customer, let's say $100, I would assume that after 2 years, for example, I would like him to pay back in his kind of buying from Monday the $100, and everything on top of that is basically me creating profits. So these are the things that you are looking at SaaS, and these are, when I wake up in the morning, I look at the ARR. We have a very important BI system called BigBrain, and BigBrain is providing us with a lot of data, marketing campaigns, ARR, retention rate, what I mentioned, the channels. You have different channels. You have self-service and you have salespeople. So the combination of the two, top of funnel metrics. Anyway, a lot of metrics. I don't want to kind of bring just to speak about the long list, but there are, many KPIs.
We're always interested in how finance leaders are trying to help, push certain numbers out there, make parts of the company more aware of why a certain metric or number matters. Is there some experience that you've had as you've led as a finance leader there?
Yeah, sure. So in Monday, one of the most important cultural things that we would like to make sure people understand is transparency. So if you walk in the Monday office, you will see screens in every floor, many screens, and the screens presents a lot of data. And we tell people, me as a CFO, I have in finance, I have 50 people that report to me. I have a VP finance, I have controllers, and we have a weekly kind of meeting with the leaders and monthly with the entire division, in which we speak about the metrics of the business. So we tell people, you have to look at growth rates. So how you look at growth rates? You're looking month by month at the net added ARR that we bring to the business every month, and how much money we had to invest in order to bring this net added ARR. And we also do it for the entire organizations in a way of either company meetings where I present the financial data, only highlights. I don't want to bother them. I present highlights of the financial data. How much ARR we added in this given month? What was the source of this ARR in terms of new clients versus expansion? What was the growth rate? How do you measure growth rate? For example, if we did let's give an example. In year 2021, we sold in $308 million, and we are now at $510. What it means is $510 million of revenue in 2022 based on our last guidance. So 510 divided in 308 is 65%. So we are trying to educate the employees in how to look at these KPIs. And also we provide a lot of benchmark, because we want to make sure that people understand that not only the absolute number, but also how it is related to other publicly traded company in our industry, in our space, and to make sure that they understand this kind of difference and what is unique about us. So we do it regularly. We have weeklies, we have monthlies, we share a lot of data in screens, we share a lot of data in meetings, and this is a very, very important part of Monday, which I believe also, to a certain extent, help us to continue to grow and develop the business, because if something is visible to you and you can relate to it, it will also drive behavior and will drive action. And this is something that we make sure that people really understand.
Interesting. Thank you for that. I now want to ask you, because I'm intrigued about your IPO, we want to ask you for your finance strategic moment, which I think you tipped your hand a little bit and let us know you want to talk about the IPO. But let me ask the question outright. Tell us, what is your finance strategic moment you'd like to share?
So for me, taking the company public for the first time in my life. So I can tell you, it's actually a great story. So Monday was looking for a CFO for a year and a half, and I'm telling this, relates to back to early 2021. So around October 2020, they decided that they want to go public. They didn't have a CFO. They have no one in the management team that ever did an IPO. And they were looking for a CFO for either in Israel and outside of Israel for a year and a half. And then they reached out to me. I was in another company at the end of January 2021. And they said, look, we are looking to do an IPO and we are looking at CFOs, and your name came up. They interviewed me 10 days, a blitz of 10 days, 10 interviews in 10 days, and they made me an offer. Now, I never did an IPO. I didn't know the business. I didn't know the people. And I had to make a decision because I was in another company that I liked. And I made the tough decision. By the way, the first decision and the last decision in my life that I left the company, less than 5 years in the company. So I worked for Lightrix, another great company, for 15 months, and I decided to move to Monday. So I started working for Monday in February 16 in 2021. I don't know the people. I don't know the investors. I don't know the board. I don't know the business. And they literally brought me to a room and they said, there is an IPO going on, it's yours. And I'm like, okay. Now you can either go under and, be intimidated, but everything that I did in my life, let's go back to the CFO that kind of mentored me in my early career, the business understanding, the ability to speak with people. This was the moment where I felt like everything comes together. And I said, you know what? I'm taking it. So I started listening at nights to earning calls and podcasts. I started getting to know the people that are stakeholders in the organization. I had to speak with the analysts and the banks and, that are covering us and are part of the IPO. I had to speak with the investors. I had to do TTW to tell a story about Monday when I just joined Monday, and then to do another TTW. And there is a roadshow. Now, Jack, to remind you, we are in a time where there are multiple IPOs. The attention of the investors and analysts is across many companies, and you have to be outstanding how you make your company unique. So there is no easy solution. I work 20 hours a day, but everything I did until then, my global experience, the fact that I spoke English, and I invested in it, the fact that I was looking to hire good people because you're only as good as your people are. This is not a cliche, and I brought good people to help me. And, literally everybody's looking at me. You're the CFO. We never did an IPO. Lead this. So I decided to take action. And, for 4 months, kind of my world was upside down. I told my wife and my kids, I will see you back in the summer. And I'm going to Monday. And June 11, 2021, we rang the bell, or June 10. I can't even remember. It was June 10 or June 11. And it was a very successful IPO. It was probably the highest and most successful SaaS company IPO in Israel ever, and one of the top IPOs of SaaS companies at the time globally. And since then, to almost a year and a half after that, this is a moment in your life where you stand there on the podium and you look back and you say, how did I do it? Because, you just learn as you move. So, you have to be able to deal with pressure. You have to be multitasking. You have to be able to speak with people and not be intimidated. You have to have a self-confidence, but it's not coming out of the blue. All my career, I read a lot of books. I listened to many podcasts. I spoke with analysts. I read articles. So it got me to a point where I felt comfortable, to take the opportunity, like I did back then in 2003, when they made me a young CFO. So I think this was kind of, for me, not only a strategic moment, but a life-changing moment from a personal and professional kind of aspect.
Nice. Thank you for that. I do have a follow-up interesting. I don't always do them, but you shared with us how the company displays information in different parts and tries to, as I was asking you about how do you educate the employees about the numbers. Did that all come out of the IPO, or what was the company? I'm not saying it wasn't transparent before the IPO, but one would imagine the IPO became an event that allowed the company to become more transparent. And since you were reporting those numbers, or no, was it part of the culture before?
No, it was, so Jack, to your question, it was part of the culture before. This is one of the most important things for Monday. We want to share with the employees everything. As long as a public company, there are limitations to what we can share. Like before the IPO, we shared with them the ARR numbers. Now we can't really share all the ARR numbers, but we definitely share a lot of KPIs. So this was something that we promoted and pushed within the organization all the time. Roy and Eran, the CEOs, are very, in terms of data sharing and kind of sharing everything with the employees. They are very open to that, and they believe this is part of why the company is successful. So we were always like that.
Were your earlier companies as much that way? Were they a little different in that respect?
I think that it's a unique kind. I don't think many entrepreneurs and many executives like to share the information the same way we do it in Monday. I can tell you that for me, it was a good fit because I'm a great believer in sharing information. The way I managed the team, I hired a lot of people during the last 2 years, and we always have like open groups in which we share. And I want to make sure that the FP&A team will speak with the controllership and we speak with the tax people, and they will be in the same meeting sometimes, because we have to make sure that information is flowing without any bureaucracy or limitations. Otherwise, this is the only way for you to get kind of control of the data amounts that are, that we are managing. If the FP&A is doing the budgets will not be aware of what we're trying to achieve from a controllership perspective and what are the tax aspects of this, we will have kind of holes within our business model. So for me, from my personal perspective, every organization I was working with, I was very open I was very open with sharing the data, even though some people said, look, I prefer to share less, but this is my domain. And I do it until today, and I encourage my people to do it with their people to make sure that every time the information that they have will not be solely with them. I don't want to be dependent in anyone. I don't want to surprise anyone. I want to make sure that everything is out there open, and we try to also to be approachable. So I don't sit in the ivory tower. I think it's part of how you can share this. I am very approachable to every people within the organization. And I think this is something, if I have to give an advice to someone, make sure that you share the information and make sure you communicate with your, with your employees, with your colleagues. There is no over communication. You need to control what you're sharing, but make sure you share this because it's really helpful and it will help you to move forward.
Hello and welcome to 60-second stories from CFO Thought Leader. The Goldman Sachs anti-raid team was between conference calls with its embattled company client when it received word that a key member of the company's management team had unexpectedly died. Looking back, Tom Fenimore says the next few months of his early career years at Goldman Sachs then became a transition point, or a period of accelerated learning. The client company, the target of a recent raid, asked Fenimore to join its team for the next few months and help the company complete a transaction that would fend off future raiders. You'll hear that story and much more on episode number 868 featuring Tom Fenimore, CFO of Luminar Technologies. Please join us and listen.
Excellent. Thank you for that. We're going to jump to our mentoring round where we ask you once more to look back for us. And you just touched upon this briefly. We want to know about the first time you stepped into a CFO role. So it would have been when your CFO mentor moved on and the role became yours in short order, it sounds like. That first 60 days as a CFO, if you can think back to who you were then, what is the piece of advice you might have given yourself or you'd like to give yourself if you go back in time? But you just stepped into the role, you're that much younger, that much less experienced than you are today. What is it that you would tell your younger self then?
So it's a great question, and I will give you two answers for this because there was also a mentorship that I took in a later stage in my life. The advice I would give to myself is I was always, I'm hyperactive, and I'm like, I move quickly, and sometimes the pace that I work, which by the way was helpful for me, say for example in many cases like the IPO, other people work in a different kind of pace, and sometimes you have to be more patient. I was almost like I was loose, I wasn't very structured. And as a young CFO, I got to these meetings with executives and with the board, and sometimes I didn't listen enough before I said what I had to say. I kind of just wanted to say what I wanted to say, which was a mistake. Even if I was right, you have to learn to understand the room around you, to understand your position, that every word that you are saying as a CFO, people look at you. You are the gatekeeper, and you have to make sure that everything that you say is meaningful, is valuable, and wait for your cue. So I would say, sit back, relax, listen to what's going on around you, and then, say what you want to say and add value. This is one thing. So as a young CFO, I can tell you that I made a lot of mistakes in rushing to things, sometimes just wanting to say my opinion without listening to others. The second thing I will tell you that later in my career, I asked to be mentored. So while I'm in the US, we met a lady from an organization that is basically doing strategic mentoring for CFOs and other executives. And, what I wanted to learn from her is, as a CFO, you have many interactions with CRO, with CMO, with COO. You have to understand their angle, their pains, how they think about the business, not only through your mirror of the financial data. You also have to understand why it's important for them to bring more salespeople. What is the commission structure? You have to understand what is the campaign in marketing. You have to understand the operational side of the business. So what I did with her is trying to put myself in their shoes, how they view me as a CFO, how can I help them, how can I bring value to them? Because if the head of sales is telling me, look, I have to structure this compensation plan that sounds expensive maybe right now, but it will drive value and it will drive behavior, you have to understand what he's telling you. Not only to listen that this is expensive, maybe on the longer term, it's basically the right thing to do. So I would advise CFOs in their 60, 90 days, meet with all your stakeholders, understand what their considerations are, what is painful to them, and try to give solutions, not to create problems. And it's really important to have weeklies or monthlies with the head of sales, with the head of marketing, with the head of operation, with the head of product, understand the business, understand the product, understand what makes them drive the business in the way they're doing it, and get out of your office. So get out of your office and meet people, your colleagues, employees of your colleagues and employees of yourself, and your managers. So this is the interaction that really, the mentoring helped me a lot to understand this. And also develop a business orientation globally, like read about things, listen to things, read news, read magazines, read about the books that may help you to develop as an executive and as a CFO. So these are the advices that helped me, in different stages of my life. I did most of them, and they really took me to the next level.
Excellent. Thank you, Eliran. That's wonderful.
Sorry, Jack, one more thing. Bring good talent. Don't compromise on the people that you hire. Because I would say if you ask me what is the maybe number one thing that you would do as a CFO or as an executive, bring good people. You have to, because they are gold. And all the things that I said combined with a good team.
We always like to ask our guests, Elron, to reflect a little bit on the personal side of things. We wonder if you are known for sort of a personal routine that you have, or some habit or something. It might be something more that a family member would point out to us rather than a colleague. It's something you've done for a while and you're known for. Anything come to mind, personal habit or part of a routine that you do?
Yeah, so I heard a lot, I hear a lot. You're not the typical CFO. And when I say, what do you mean I'm not the typical CFO? People tell me, you're very casual. You're not taking yourself too seriously, which I think is really important. And so I do presentations in Monday, and we have an offsite very soon. And last year I did my presentation, and people came to me and said, we didn't know that you're a storyteller. And I told them I don't improvise only. I practice a lot. So I think the thing that people will tell you is that I have a good sense of humor. And I think in life, you have to have a good sense of humor. In general, be professional, but don't take yourself too serious. I would say that people will tell you that Eliran is professional, but sometimes he can be very light. So, and I'm not bothered too much what people think about it. I think this is the only and the best way for me to operate as one as CFO, but on the other end, engage with people.
Excellent. Well, thank you. Thank you for that. Would you have a book recommendation for us? It doesn't have to be a business book, whatever you'd like to suggest.
Yeah, so I recently read Frank Slootman's. Frank Slootman is the CEO of Snowflake, one of the most prominent companies in NASDAQ. Before that, he was the CEO of ServiceNow, and before that, Data Domain. He wrote a book called Amp It Up, and it's about how to run a business in different times, how to do transformation in the business. And one of the quotes that I liked about the book, he said, I have this CFO that I'm working with him for a long time, Mike Scarpelli. And when they offered me to take the job in Snowflake, I called Mike and I said, Mike, I might be going to this company. Will you join? Only after Mike joined, I joined, which means I wanted my CFO to sign because I knew he's my partner. And I like to be a partner to my colleagues. And he said, when he told me I'm coming, I said, okay, I will take the job because I trust him. And so I like the book because it has aspects of the kind of the business advices, but also ones that are more, experienced in life and, the relationship between him and other people that he kind of met along the way. So it kind of, I found it really interesting. It's a good book.
Nice. All right. Well, we are up to our final question where we ask you to look forward for us. We'd like to know what your priorities are as a CFO for the next 12 months looking forward. What would those priorities be?
So Monday is a company that is growing rapidly and improving efficiency at scale. So I think the next 12 months for us, by the way, in times of some uncertainties in the market, we still have the geopolitical and macroeconomy kind of challenges. The challenge for me is to continue to grow the business, to scale the business in terms of achieving our targets, expanding globally, and continue to innovate. It's really important for me to be able to support the people who are innovating the business or developing the business in terms of analysis, data, and providing them with tools that we can all make decisions to take the business to the right direction. The second thing, I would like to continue to develop the talent that I have in finance. I want to make sure that, when I joined, we had like 25 people. I hired 25 people. I did a lot of modifications. I want to make sure that I'm building a mid-management team that is solid enough to make sure that no matter what happens, they will take the business to the next level. They will be the future potentially CFOs and other roles in the organization or in different organizations. So it's a combination of developing the business and developing the talent within the finance organization.
Eliran Glazer, thank you for joining us on CFO Thought Leader.
Thank you, Jack. It was my pleasure, and thank you again for having me.
Hello, Thought Leader listeners. As you have perhaps already heard, or even seen. We're now featuring the career lessons and moments of strategic insight shared by our CFO guests as thought leader videos. You can now find these videos on our blog at cfothoughtleader.com and, of course, our newsletters, but also on LinkedIn. If you haven't already, please go ahead and follow our CFO Thought Leader LinkedIn company page, and you'll be certain not to miss a single Thought Leader video debut. CFO Thought Leader, the #1 thought leadership platform exclusively for and by CFOs. As always, thank you for listening.